There are common educational experiences to which most of us can relate. And to start off today, I'd like to share one with you. How many of you sat in a high school class and thought to yourself, why am I taking this? I'm never going to use this any time in my life outside of this room. Who had that experience by show of hands? All right, most of you. I'm going to take it a step further then. Did any of you have an entire year that felt like that when you were in high school? Show of hands. Some of you. I was one of those people. And for that year, for me, it was my senior year of high school. In the past years that I've been working as a primarily senior teacher in a public high school in Houston, I have discovered that the senior year is broken. It is not by design serving the needs of the students because of the scheduling and the type of work we're asking them to do. Unfortunately, it's also causing this terrible disease. And some of you that work in education will be familiar with it. It causes senioritis. Now, first bit of evidence I want to offer you that the senior year of high school is broken is simple. The seniors follow the same schedule that they follow their junior year, their sophomore year, and their freshman year, with very little variation. And think about it. Who is the same person their senior year that they were their freshman year? If that's not enough evidence, I have more. The senior schedule these students are following looks just like the schedule I followed my senior year of high school, and that was in 1997. Now, I'm not saying there have been no advancements in education. We have more magnet programs. We have charter schools. We have more services for those with learning disabilities. We have career and technology, we have middle colleges, and we have early colleges, just like the one that I teach in. Once again, scheduling and instructional design are the problems. The other great advancement in education is that we're pushing more students to attend community colleges or four-year universities, and that is an excellent goal. But are we preparing the students and arming them with the soft skills they need to succeed? Are we training them in autonomy and leadership? When I ask my own students, so when do you think you're supposed to have autonomy and leadership over your own learning? And they said, that's what college is for. So I asked them, what is high school for? Their answer, to get into college. Now, the positive is they've now identified a time that they're going to have control over what they're doing. The problem is they chose a time that they're going to have to pay for and that lacks the compulsory motivations that school has taught them to rely upon. But for the sake of argument, let's go ahead and say the purpose of high school is to get into college. According to the Texas Academic Performance Report released by the Texas Education Agency, in 2013-2014, 70.5% of students at a university did not require remediation. The following year, 55.6% of students required no remediation. Every year, when testing data comes out, the state of Texas assesses the effectiveness of school districts, who then assess the effectiveness of their campuses, who then, of course, assess the effectiveness of campus personnel. Wouldn't there be an assumption of improvement when we see the data? But this is an improvement. In fact, it's a 14.9% difference in one academic year. And anyone who follows educational data knows the changes are not often this drastic. I cannot and will not believe that the teachers that serve these students all of a sudden became less effective. What I will say is those students that went to that university were not trained to succeed, and they had a fear of failure. And if you can eliminate that fear of failure, you can actually find positives in educational news. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, in the year 2000, there was a 10.9% dropout rate. In 2016, it's down to 6.1%, a 4.8% decrease. Now, that is great news. It's also very generalized. It's not broken down by demographic, because there are demographics that have not met the levels we know they'll be able to someday. But with an increase in high school graduates and a drive to push them to colleges and universities, we need to ensure that they have the soft skills to succeed. Now, before I move into how to fix it, I have to admit my own bias. The class that I teach is leadership and autonomy. It also validates the fact that this solution can work. Think about your traditional high school setting. Where does autonomy happen? In a classroom? Not often. In the cafeteria? If there's time. The autonomy happens in the hallways during passing periods. Think of the astounding time management that students have to show in those 5 minutes. They have to go to their locker, they have to go to the bathroom, and they have to have a social life, all within 5 minutes. And those 5 minutes are also covered with warning bells, teachers yelling at them to get to class, and the tardy bell with all those negative consequences associated with that. But that takes a lot of energy. They're moving, they're energetic, and then they get into the classroom, and we kill all of their energy by telling them to sit there and be quiet, because this information that I'm telling them is important. And the problem is, it is important. But are they just supposed to take our word for it? What have we done to celebrate what they just did, their interactions, their priorities? What about that kid that walks into class late every single day until he or she doesn't? Do we celebrate that, or do we just rationalize to them, hey, that's what you're supposed to do? When we do that, they might start to believe what we are telling them is actually important. When you were in high school, did you feel like a leader? Was that title validated when you were a captain, an officer, leader of a performance group? Or were you one of the power brokers who didn't hold a title? Someone who just through their charisma, energy, and passion got people to follow them? And what are we doing to train those students? Are we expecting leaders to just rise to the top naturally? And think about it. That leaves out those kids who are not naturally outspoken, not naturally dynamic, but still can be effective leaders if we allowed them to be. Same high school example. How many of you were allowed to choose what you learned, when you learned it, or who you learned it from when you were in high school? Very few hands. How many of you did not have that opportunity till you went to a college or university? Look at all those hands. That's exactly my point. Now, the argument against it, the students don't know how to do that. Well, of course they don't know how to do that. We haven't taught them yet. Well, they're unfamiliar. That's what teaching is. Explaining the unfamiliar to students and hoping they're able to do it. Could you imagine if we expose students to an assessment that we don't actually teach them for? Actually, that's standardized testing, but that's a different talk. We wait for them to learn that lesson in college when it causes them stress, often lower self-esteem, and depending on where it is, $330 per credit hour at a public university in Houston, Texas. At the private university in Houston, where this talk is happening, it's a $1,942 lesson in autonomy per credit hour. There have to be, and there are options to ensure that these students can be successful at a university level as we prepare them in the high schools. Now, a quick caveat before I get to the actual solutions. If you are listening to this talk, whether live or on YouTube, and you work with a public school, and you're saying, yeah, it sounds good, but it'll never work at my school, you are absolutely correct. Because if you talk your school into failure, you are destined to fail. Talk your school into growth, and you will begin to grow. Second warning, this is not a prescription. I can't say take this, put it in your school, and all of a sudden, magically, everything will be solved. Put it in your school, and then see the growth that will come from it gradually. So the first problem, the leadership problem. Here's the solution. Make all students leaders. Sound simple? Here's the secret. It is. They need a chance to lead. But as teachers, we need to be brave enough to give them the chance to fail, to grow, and to try again. Leadership is a skill. Skills can be fostered. They can grow within a person if they choose to, and we allow them the chance. In the program that I run, it's called Advisory. I train the seniors in my class to lead activities. They lead underclassmen through those activities. They come back to my class, they reflect on what we did, and then we discuss it. And here's the crazy part. The only grade they receive in my class for this is that they did it and have an opinion on how it went. And when they have the chance to understand that their success is only being measured on their growth, they're able to be honest about their failures, their struggles, whether they're extrinsic or whether they're intrinsic. They're able to look at how to grow. And here's a little teacher trick. A student cannot grow and be apathetic at the same time. This is a strike against senioritis. It is weakened but not eradicated. So we must go on to the other problem, the autonomy and control problem. Here's the answer to that. Give the control to students for their own learning. They don't know how to do it because we haven't let them yet. As teachers, that changes our role. We become mentors. We become counselors. We become advisors. We help them make the decisions that are in their own best interest, whatever that may be. Second half of that plan, flex scheduling, involving independent study. My program is called Senior Exhibition. It gives students a chance to learn what they've always wanted to study, but school got in the way of. I'm not saying it's perfect. In fact, the plan I'm talking about up here today is the plan I hope my class can become. And I also hope it for any other teacher's class that may hear this. One half of the day, students go to the courses they want or need. Those advanced placement courses, those career and technology courses, athletics, electives, or in my school's case, dual credit. The rest of the day is independent study, where they bring in correlating information from all 4 core subjects, English, math, social studies, and science. They go to teachers on the campus who teach these subjects, and they learn the relevant information for that subject to their project, making their education more relevant to them. The teacher supervises and advises. And if you're wondering what a teacher like me would do, I'm there to ensure they have good decisions to make. And I'm here to listen to them when they struggle with those decisions. They end it with a dissertation talking about the relevance of their study. It's not perfect, but just imagine what will happen when minds greater than my own take this idea and grow it. And that's my closing challenge to all of you. Whether you're a student, a parent, a teacher, an administrator, a superintendent, a board member, or a community member, take this idea and expand it to the communities, schools, universities that you serve. Challenge them to take this idea farther. Because it's not about who started the idea. And it's definitely not about who takes it next. It's who's going to take it after that and give these students a chance to learn autonomy, leadership, and control. And maybe, just maybe, if we can all agree to do that, we can get rid of senioritis before it claims another student. Thank you.